continue to enjoy and eat and to conversation. It's about to start. Feel free to peruse the journal that everyone should have a copy. It should be on the table that contains the students' work. Just keep in mind that some of the projects were more were research-based, so you would have more of a lengthier paper, and some are more project-based. So the material you'll be reading in the journal is more of an explanation, introduction to what they'll be showing tonight. So that's why there's a big difference. Okay, I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. Administrators, teachers, mentors, advisors, parents, lay leaders, and of course members of the Blumenthal family. Without your continued commitment and special connection to the Yeshiva of Flatbush, this evening would not have been possible. We're so happy that you could join us in celebrating the work and dedication of several special students who are here today. The May and Bernard Blumenthal Scholars Program, now in its 9th year, is dedicated to two very special people. Pillars of the community, of the family, and of Jewish education, May and Bernard Blumenthal, Aleichem Shalom, created a legacy that continues to grow and be impactful in many ways. This dinner, this commemoration, this celebration, is a fitting tribute to them. By encouraging the furtherance of scholarship and the academic, spiritual, intellectual, and social pursuits of our students, the future leaders of Klal Yisrael. May their memory be blessed and continue to be a source of strength and inspiration to their family and to all of us. Rabbi Joseph Blumenthal, Judaic Studies teacher here at Yeshiva Flatbush, will speak shortly on behalf of the family and in honor of his grandparents. First, I have to thank many people. Special thanks, of course, go to Mr. Ferhanen. We only have to look around the room and see why. Organizing, preparing this fantastic dinner. We're enjoying tonight and the beautiful decor that surrounds us. This would not be possible without you, and thank you so much. Thank you, David Gelpert, for all your organization. Behind the scenes assistance in making this and everything else happen. And the maintenance staff for helping set up so beautifully. I must also thank Joey Berkovitz. Former scholar, but you're never a former scholar, you're always a scholar. And as is Emily, who's joined us tonight. So he's helped setting up all the AV needs for this program and so many others, pretty much everything. And for Joe Braha for helping with the camera work. Sorry. Thank you to the mentors from inside and outside the school. Several of you have joined us tonight, our faculty mentors. You've given of your valuable, limited time to work with students on this project throughout the year and help guide them through the process till tonight. I just want to recognize those who are here. Ms. Kaplowitz, Ms. Agassi, are you here?
I'm here.
Ms. Kaplowitz is here.
I'm here.
Ms. Goodweller, Mr. Horowitz, Ms. Lang, and Ms. Bacon as well. Ms. Bacon. I think Ms. Agassi is coming. But also to those who are not here, who could not make it tonight, Ms. Bloom, Ms. Dr. Mizrahi, and several others. Thank you so much for your assistance. Thank you to Rabbi Harari, who unfortunately wasn't able to come tonight due to a family situation, and Rabbi Beta for your constant support and guidance, and as well to Ms. Bacon and Mrs. Hidary for your help and guidance as well. Your concern and commitment towards every student is apparent every single day. And I must say also a special thanks to Ms. Jill Sanders, who could not be here tonight. She wasn't feeling well. But she really helped so much in everything. been guiding life throughout the years of its creation and development over the years. So I wish her a speedy recovery for Shlema. Okay, now I'd like to introduce our principal, Rabbi Beda. We're just going to say a few words.
Thank you to someone that needs a tremendous thank you, and that's Mr. Brian Katz. It's always astounding what we're able to accomplish, and the way that you accomplish it, particularly with a tremendous amount of diligence and insight and humility, and the combination of all three is really special. The kids love working with you, love following up with you and doing things with you, so we're really blessed that you take this program on, and God willing, you lead it to many, many more successes for many more years to come. I also, I'm speaking on behalf of the administration. I wanted to say a special thank you to the Blumenthal family, with Sharon and Avram, Janice and Alan, and David and Rabbi Joe. The Blumenthal family is connected to Flatbush, as we see, for over 50 years, and so in sports, they say sometimes a good player is someone that's just been doing it for a long time, and sometimes they say no, the person is really just so excellent. And you guys hit both sides. You've been excellent for a long time in every which way to the yeshiva, and we're really blessed to be able to have you as a part in all the ways that you've been a part for as many years as you have. We're very fortunate to continue to have Rabbi Joe here every single day, working with our students and giving up himself passionately. And we're just really thankful for all that you've done. And this program, which is keeps getting better and better by the year, is a wonderful testament to your parents, your grandparents, and really to you by extension for your passion for education and commitment to the Yeshiva of Flatbush in general, and specifically to the students and student greatness. So thank you so much for all that you do. Brian already mentioned all the faculty mentors, but certainly I wanted to say thank you to them as well on behalf of the entire administration. But tonight is not about us, it's really about the students. And looking around tonight and perusing the papers that were put in the binder, I was really, really, really impressed. I was impressed on a number of levels. First of all, by the level of the content, for sure. But I was impressed by the students. What we have here is a representative over the course of 3 years. We have a sophomore, a senior, and a lot of juniors. And you look at the names, and these are undoubtedly the best and brightest of our students. It's really fantastic. And to see that these students don't rest with nice grades or some good extracurricular activities, but rather they look to achieve more and to try and make some kind of lasting contribution. That's really a fantastic statement about the school, but specifically about the students in the school. We're really proud of them, and I'm really excited to see each one stand up and present him or herself at the project that they have. So let's enjoy the rest of the evening, and congratulations to everyone for a fantastic job. Well done. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I see balloons, I see baby toys, but there's no baby. So one of the most intricate and beautiful art projects that exists in Tanakh, we know, is the Mishkan, tabernacle. And after many, many, many chapters of repeating all the instructions and all the details as to how we're going to build this beautiful art project, Hashem decides that he needs someone to run the project, the guy to run the entire construction. Who are we going to pick? The Jews were slaves in Egypt. They've been dealing with rocks, mud, straw. Nobody knows how to paint. Nobody knows how to weave. Nobody knows how to cut diamonds. And yet Hashem finds somebody, as the Chumash tells us towards the end of Sefer Shemot, Re'ei karati b'shem Bitzalel ben Uri. Hashem decides to pick a certain man whose name is Bitzalel ben Uri. What is unique about this man? Why is he fit to run this massive construction and art project? So Hashem says, don't get nervous. V'amaleo Torah Elokim. I will fill him up with God's Spirit, the Chokhmah, V'yunah, V'dat. He'll have knowledge, he'll have understanding, he'll know how to do all the construction, he'll be able to weed, he'll be able to color, paint, etc., etc. He'll be able to build. He'll take care of it. So the Ramban, on this story, this short introduction, asks a very strong yet obvious question that we should all ask. As I just mentioned, the Jews have been slaves. They don't know how to do anything. No art, no building, no construction. What makes this guy unique? Okay, so he's smart, he has knowledge, but how does that help? How is he going to run a project with people who don't know how to write their name? How is any of this actually going to take place? And in 4 very simple yet strong words, the Ramban answers this question by writing that what was unique about Bitzalel, says the Ramban, Ki haya haratzon milfanav, that he contained a very, very strong passion. He had a will. He wanted to get it done. He understood that it was necessary to get it done. He understood that it was important to get all this stuff done, and therefore it was going to get done. What's interesting to point out is not only was he passionate, but because of his passion and understanding about how important building the Mishkan is, he was therefore successful in imparting his passion on all the builders. So it's always a nice thing that students outside of the regular classroom have the ability to delve into their passions and different areas of interest. And as the famous, as the American author Neil Gaiman writes, the one thing that you have and nobody else has is you. Your voice, your mind, your story, and your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live life only as you can. So again, everybody should enjoy the students, their presentations, and they should continue to build on their passions throughout life.
Amen.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
I think I just go in
I'm currently taking a graduate course at Brooklyn College on Thursday evenings. Recently, it involved an almost surreal experience as I had accompanied my daughter to a reception/orientation for incoming students, and the next day I was back on campus as a student myself. It was a strange feeling, but it helped me not feel quite so old being a student again the next day. So the course I'm taking is called Curriculum Design for the Diverse, Gifted, and Talented Student. And it's been extremely rewarding in many ways. The main focus of the class is on differentiation and on student choice. So as Rabbi Blumenthal was saying, giving students choice to decide what they want to pursue their passions, their areas of interest, is really so important to make the learning their own. Yeshiva Flatbush stands at the forefront of providing this to students, this ability to choose, to pick your own path, to cultivate their passions and strengths, to pursue professional interests and goals inside and outside the classroom. The Blumenthal Scholars Program provides students with a perfect vehicle for this. And you're going to see a great diversity of projects tonight in technology, fashion, writing, therapy, art, and so many different things. And that speaks to the diversity of our student body and to their commitment to pursuing things outside the classroom, not just doing what I have to do for class and going home. That's not who they are. So they're going to build on this. They're going to continue working on these projects. This is only phase 1. And I'm so happy everyone can see what they've built so far. We have quite a large cohort this year. Thank God, a very nice number of students, so they've been instructed to move it along, not to spend too much time, be very brief, to the point in their presentations, which are going to be very interesting. And they are happy to take questions, 1 or 2 questions after the presentation, and there should be time for everyone, and we should be done not too long. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our first presenter, who actually did not do a project, actually did 2 projects. So that would be Isabel Lin. She
Good evening, everyone. Before I start, I just need to thank My mentors on creative writing, Mr. Hofstetter and Ms. Marcus for helping me with that, and for law, Ms. Kapowitz for giving me a lot of input and helping me create my research. And of course, I need to thank Mr. Katz for mentoring us this whole time through the whole process. When I first started the project, I wasn't sure what to do because I love writing and I love law. And I was told I had to put a paper on something. When Mr. Katz offered up the idea of combining them, I was thrilled because I had a way to work on both of my passions. My research consists of two parts. The first being criminal law and its procedures. The second being criminal psychology, what is commonly popularly known as criminal profiling. Using this research, I then wrote a fictional novel called Sinful. A lot of my research came from databases, books, and websites. However, a portion came from a course I attended at Columbia University in the summer for high school students. It was a 3-week trial advocacy course, which gave me a lot of knowledge. I got to meet a lot of interesting people and use my law knowledge at the end in a mock trial. Although I would love to talk about my topics for hours, I have a limited time. So I'm going to give a brief overview of my novel and explain how I integrated my research into it. Novel entitled Sinful. In a town called Memphis, Ohio, Matthew Scarborough is on trial for multiple counts of first-degree murder. As the trial progresses, we see how the criminal justice system is not always black and white. No one is free from sin, and some people are so consumed by that they lose control. Is Matthew guilty? You are the jury. You decide. I've always loved mystery novels. For example, whodunits, like Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. In my book, every chapter is a different sin, and it centers around a different character that seems to relate to that sin. I found this was an interesting way to progress my story along and relate it to the theme of criminal psychology. Matthew was on trial for first-degree murder, a very serious criminal offense, as you might imagine. These are the main parts of a trial. The opening statement is where the attorney is going to give an overview of what is presented in the case. It is his or her first chance to appear before the jury and give a first impression. The direct examination is where the attorney is asking their own witnesses questions and trying to paint their story. They want to paint their witness in the best light possible. The cross-examination is where opposing counsel will go to the other witness and try to poke holes in their story. They want the jury to see them in a negative light. And the closing statement is where the attorney can give a final picture of everything they have presented at trial, their last chance before a verdict is delivered. My story starts in the middle of Matthew's case, and there is a direct examination of Agent Christina White. Matthew, in the book, is examined by the Behavioral Analysis Unit, a unit in the FBI that specializes in criminal profiling. In the real world, this is something the Behavioral Analysis Unit commonly does. They travel to small towns and assist small investigations that turn serial. In my book, the crime is a serial murderer, and the BAU is brought in to assist. They create what is called a profile. A profile is a working image of a killer, an unknown subject that the police are looking for. When determining a profile, the police, the FBI, and the police look at 4 phases of the crime. First one is the antecedent. This is what happened before the crime was committed. What happened in the killer's life that made them start killing? This event is called the stressor. In my book, the victims are blonde women in their 20s to 40s. This leads the agents to believe that the stressor was something to do with a blonde woman in her 20s or 40s. Matthew Scarborough, the main character, happens to have a blonde wife, and she recently became pregnant. This added a lot of financial stress to Matthew. The next stage is method and manner. The method and manner is the act, modus operandi, how the killer did the crime. This was drawn from this man. This man is David Carpenter, also known as the Trailside Killer. He got the name because he killed women in hills. In 1979, he began killing women, and the way he attacked them was from behind. Now, VAU saw this, and profiler John Douglas had an idea why. He said it was because the person had a speech impediment. He couldn't attack them, he couldn't persuade them or make them come with him, so instead he went from behind. When they found David Carpenter, he was found to have a stutter, which he acquired at a young age. Similarly, the killer in my book attacked from behind, and therefore the killer must have had a stutter. Matthew Scarborough has a severe stutter as well. The third phase they look at is geography. Geography is important because it helps agents see where they're looking. My town, a fictional town called Nimbus, Ohio, is where the agents would be looking. They would know not to go beyond there because that is where the criminal's comfort zone is, where he is killing, putting his victims, and likely lives. Matthew Scarborough was Nimbus. The fourth phase is subsequent behavior. What the criminal is doing after the kills. At Matthew's trial, a witness is brought that saw him visiting the park that one of the victims was killed at. This is often a sign of remorse. The killer is coming back and feels bad about what he did, so he's visiting the crime scene. Now, I've just presented you with a lot of evidence of Matthew Scarborough's guilt. But as I said, Matthew's case is not so black and white. There seems to be a lack of physical evidence against him. But in a court of law, the prosecution needs to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. If they happen to do this with psychological and circumstantial evidence rather than direct physical evidence, it doesn't really matter if the jury still convicts. If the jury decides a unanimous verdict of guilty, that man will go to jail. I won't tell you what happens in my book, but I'll leave you with a question. Based on the information I gave you so far, what verdict would you deliver?
Does anyone have any questions for Isabel about her process, her story?
How do I read the book?
That's a good question. Any other questions?
Oh, that's a good answer.
It's funny that you say that. We just happen to have a couple of Isabel will be giving out some copies. We don't have enough for everyone, but we're going to put at least
You
a
want
few on
that
each
one?
table and you'll pass them around. Get a sneak peek. Any no questions for Isabel? Okay, great. Thank you, Isabel. That was really something.
I get you.
And that leads us to our next speaker, Ada Hessen. Did a wonderful project on origami and how it can be used as art therapy. And like all of our projects, it's not only the research she's done, but what she's planning to do, how she's planning to create a program based on her theories and to create a study. So it's really developing, but she really did so much, and she's going to explain to you now what she did.
The fuel. Don't have to look. Two of them.
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I'd like to thank a lot of people that really helped me with this project. First of all, thank you, Mr. Katz, for giving me this amazing opportunity. I'd like to thank my parents who really added a lot. My dad, who's a neurologist, who's able to help me with that side of things, and my mom, who's a social worker. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Mizrahi, who helped me a lot with the art therapy. and also Toshiko Kobayashi, who is who's the head of Origami Therapy Association, who worked with me a lot and really taught me how to help people through origami. So what is origami? Origami is the art of folding paper. So there are many different types of papers and ways of folding origami, but it's something that's very beautiful and fun. I've been folding origami since I was about 8 years old, and I've always been in love with it, and it's something that I've always loved to share. So the applications of origami is that it can be used as an art, as many people use it, and it's also very relaxing. I know that for me, whenever I'm stressed or have a lot of things going on, origami helps me and get out everything that's going on with my life. And there are many sources for origami. So many people think that origami could come from China, where paper started. There are also theories that it started in Japan, and there's another theory that actually started in Europe. It's very hard to say exactly when origami started because paper disintegrates very easily. So there aren't a lot of proofs as to when it exactly started. There are also many different types of origami. So I have some on this here. There's modular origami, which uses a lot of different pieces. So each of these is a different piece that I folded separately and then put together. There's origami tessellations, which is basically a repeating pattern. So this is an origami acorn that I made, and the top of it is a tessellation, so it's a repeating pattern. You can come look at these after if you can't see now. Then there are just models that are representational of specific things. So this is a man and a woman dancing. This is a camera. It's very small. This is an elephant folded out of a tea bag. And there's also wet folding, which is when you use very thick paper and use water to help mold the paper into the shape you want. So this is a crane sitting on a rock that I folded. Origami can also be used for mathematical purposes. Origami is very complicated, and there are many measurements and specific folds that can make or break a model. There's also origami in space, which is used a lot to send up things that need to be big in space but need to get there very small, so satellites, as you can see in the picture. And many professional origami folders help with this and work for NASA and space stations and help them figure out the right way to fold whatever they need to get into space. And it's also used for educational purposes. What is art therapy? Art therapy is a type of therapy whose philosophy is that the creative process of making art can be healing and can be used as a non-threatening tool of communication. So there are many different types of art therapy. There's just painting and drawing, and there's many different types. But origami isn't as well known. Origami in art therapy, it's an emerging form of art therapy that not many people know about, but it's being used around the world. So the Origami Therapy Association is an organization that I'm a part of, and it's basically a bunch of origami art therapists that go around and fold with people to help them and really learn about how to help people through origami. And the head of it is, as I mentioned before, Toshiko Kobayashi. She travels around the world and taught people how to use therapy through origami, and she's really the main, the head of origami therapy today. And origami art therapy can be used to help a lot of conditions, but I'm just focusing on ADHD because I have to pick something to focus on so that I could do a real experiment. So validating the benefits of origami art therapy. So it's very difficult to prove that origami therapy that art therapy in general is helpful because it can work differently for different people. And origami therapy is even more difficult to show quantitative results for. So what I want to do is show those results but through experiments. So you can if you fold with someone, that they can say, oh, it helped me or it didn't help me. But if we want to really show people that this can work, we want to show the actual data. What is ADHD? So the DSM-5 defines attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, as a persistent pattern of inattention and/or hyperactivity, impulsivity, that interferes with function or development. It has many symptoms presenting in 2 or more settings, for example, home, school, work, with friends or relatives, and other activities, and negatively impacts directly on social, academic, or occupational function. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, that says that 11% of American children ages 4 to 17 have the attention disorder. So that means that there are a lot of people out there that could really benefit from this, since there are many, many people who suffer from ADHD. Origami art therapy as a treatment for ADHD. So current treatments include medication or other types of therapy, but none are really perfect. There are side effects and things that it wouldn't help completely. So I would like to use origami as a way to help people with ADHD and to help them be able to focus better. So so using origami as a treatment hasn't yet been well defined because there haven't been many studies on it, or there haven't been any studies on it actually. So figuring out what's best was still being worked on. And as I said, there are no quantitative studies on it yet. Origami and ADHD, perfect fit. So origami is physically stimulating and engaging. It's it requires attention, but also it helps the kids focus because they enjoy it. It's something very enjoyable and fun. It's also guided but self-created. So you'll have someone teaching it to them, but they'll be doing it themselves and feel accomplished because of that. They're producing a tangible creation through a process. It also helps them be mindful of what's going on. And it's a profound metaphor for the therapeutic process and self-reflection. My experimental proposal. So first I'm going to identify children with ADHD, and then I will assess them prior to receiving origami therapy with different types of tests. I will possibly use the quotient ADHD test, which measures brainwaves of how exactly, distracted they are or hyper. And then I'll provide several sessions of origami therapy where I or a professional origami therapist will fold with them and help them really, focus. So I want to show you something. So you've seen all my complicated origami models, but with someone who has ADHD, you obviously wouldn't start there. So with kids with ADHD and different types of disorders, what you really want to do is fold something that doesn't need exact fold, so that when they come out with something, it will really, show they'll feel accomplished. They'll feel like they actually folded a model. So I'm just going to show you a quick little thing here. So I have a piece of paper, I'm folding it like this. So as you can see, these folds really don't have to be exact for the model to come out well. And now, you have a butterfly that will flap if you do it like this. And it also flies if you throw it. So I would like to do different types of models that will help them with their ADHD. And then I'm going to reassess for any changes in functioning after therapy to see exactly how it has helped them. The future of origami therapy. So I still would like to do more research on conducting this study and exactly how I would be able to perform it. And then I would like to actually conduct the study sometime in the future, hopefully soon. And then identify areas of success that can be implemented and spread around the world to people who can really, benefit from this. And I would like to, bring it as a serious way of treatment to really help people. And then what I also would like to do is train students to fold origami and to be able to teach people and for example, ADHD or other types of disorders, and bring them to places like children's hospitals or like Yachad and fold with them and then they'd be able to make a connection with the person with the disorder and be able to learn from each other and spread origami therapy around the world.
Any questions?
Can you tell us about some of the other populations that you work with or that benefited from it?
I've folded with many different people. I've worked with Origami Therapy Association. I'm also part of Origami USA, which is a worldwide organization of people who just love folding origami. I've taught people at Origami Literacy Day in Barkai. I've just taught my friends or anyone who would want to listen. But
Well, what are some of who are the people, like what types of disorders or things?
so a lot of people that I work with have been little kids that are hyper. I wouldn't diagnose them with ADHD, but kids that are very, very hyper. And I've seen actually how when at first they come in and they're like, oh, I'm so excited, let's do this, and they're all over the place. And then when I fold at them, they really, throughout the process, they really end up focusing on it and enjoying it. I've also folded with people who are blind. I can't even think of anything else right now.
Does insurance cover origami therapy? That's what everyone's wondering, right?
Insurance comes.
That's how the study.
They're working on it.
All of the papers are in the journal, so if you want to read more about Ada's research or anyone else's research, the journals are out, and please feel free to look at those. Okay, our next presenter is Ezra Fax, and he did actually a tiered project. He's actually the first student, at least that I've been working with, that started as a freshman. And when he was a freshman, he wasn't really a freshman, he was very mature. And I targeted him, as I said, you're doing this program, and you're gonna have time to work on it. I didn't know if he would finish this year, but he did. And he did the research phase of comparing a traditional business versus a tech startup. What are the strengths and weaknesses of others? What type of business would you prefer to start based on your interests and what your background is? And actually, he's going to build a business based on his research findings. So he's going to talk to you about that right now.
First off, I'd like to thank, of course, Mr. Katz for guiding me in this direction. I wasn't sure at first, but he definitely helped me out. And of course, the Blumenthal family, and also my mentor, Mr. Queller, for his guidance in the business field. They all really helped. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. John F. Kennedy. Now, as we look through our history in the business world, what we typically see is what we define as a traditional business, the buying and selling through commerce and trade. However, with the startup nation starting with the dot-com boom in 2000, even a little bit before, we see a new dynamic and a new era of business. So what does startup even mean? A startup is defined as a new business venture or a new commercial or industrial project. A key phrase here is new. We see that, like the word startup, this is defined as a new business venture, a new market, and a new product. And what does a business mean? Business is the purchase and sale of goods in an attempt to make a profit. Notice that businesses are built solely for a profit, while this may not be the same case with startups. What are some differences? In funding, tech startups are typically funded through virtual capitalist funding and angel funding. But traditional businesses just take a loan out of the bank and have a mortgage. Hiring is also very different. Startups look for teams and more collaborative people and people who are at the top of their class in universities. However, in a traditional business, based on the hierarchy, you basically start at the bottom and move on top. With startups, it's usually more loose. And the risk factor for startups is usually much higher because they're building a new market, a new product, and something that's never been tested before. However, traditional businesses are obviously based out of something that already exists. The biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. In a world that is changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking any risk. Mark Zuckerberg, one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our era. Startups may entail the highest risk, but they also mean the highest reward. And we see that with this quote and how Mark Zuckerberg founded Facebook. But throughout all these differences, we see that businesses are much easier to hire, much easier to fund, and have a much lower risk factor. So why bother with a startup? First of all, entrepreneurs who found businesses typically have a goal in mind, something to aspire to. They build off of an idea at first. They don't just start off with, I want to make some money, I want to be in charge of my time. They start off with, I want to have a revolution, I want to be put in history books. They're usually in it for more than the money. Like I mentioned before, they're in it for more than just profit. And they're driven and diligent. Some examples of startups include Facebook, Groupon, Apple, Google, and PayPal. So, like I mentioned before, Mark Zuckerberg, he started out Facebook simply as a way for students to communicate on college campuses. However, once he saw how successful it was, he expanded it into what it became today. He started out in a very risky new market, never tested before, with very little profit. Some examples of traditional businesses include Juice by Julie, Crumb's Bakery, Paya Manger, McDonald's, and Zappos. So when you come in lunch, you see about 80 salads outside by Juice by Julie. And honestly, it's just taking the regular salad and putting a fancy logo on it and branding a little. That's the idea of a traditional business. It's just taking something, at least for it to be successful, it's taking something that's normal, like a regular salad, and pivoting it in a certain way to make a higher profit. Because again, it's all about the profit. So these are all successful businesses, both traditional businesses and startups. My whole thesis came to answer what's considered more. According to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs' businesses fail within the first 18 months. Now that's 80% of every business within a year and a half. So that encompasses both traditional businesses and tech startups. Both startups and businesses have their pros and cons, and to weigh them out against each other isn't as simple or black and white. There's no final answer. It's specific to the entrepreneur, the idea, and the goal. So like I said before, tech startups typically sprout out of an idea. They're not just looking for profit, and they're not just looking for a job. While traditional businesses also may be like that, there are some cases where it's not. So it's really specific to each and every person. I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I cannot accept not trying. Michael Jordan, a very successful basketball player, and he understands the very business-oriented idea that if you're not going to open your business and based off of your passion, you're not going to get anywhere in life. Now, the whole idea of the Scholars Program is to take research that you'll continue with for the rest of your life. So how will I take my research further? I plan on eventually founding a business called Taim. Taim will be a daily lunch subscription targeted at office workers, specifically in Manhattan for now, with insufficient time to worry about their own lunch. This will include a wide variety of gluten-free and vegan options to cater to business executives who don't have the time or availability to provide themselves with their dietary needs. It will start out as a small selection catering to their businesses, the customer's request. So if I see it's not successful, I can pivot it into something that is more. Because one of the key principal ideas is if it fails, I don't want to lose the money, I want to be able to continue with it. Eventually, once it grows and expands, they will be able to create a meal plan, have more, obviously, dietary options, and basically, I plan to go nationwide with this. Interested? Want to take this research further? These are the following books that I found most interesting. Any questions?
Any questions for Ezra? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Ezra. That was great. Our next presenter, Danielle Duchesne, did a research project looking back at the history of women in advertising, how they've been represented and how it's evolved over the years, going through each decade and seeing how they've been represented in through various media, newspapers, magazines, television, and she's going to come up and explain her lengthy research paper, which you can read in the journal, which is really very interesting. So, Danielle.
Good evening, everyone. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to the people that have helped me along the way. Mr. Katz for really pushing me and always forcing me to meet those deadlines and things like that. Ms. Kaplitz for reading over my paper, and it was a long paper, many times, and making edits. I really appreciate that. And also to my family for dealing with me driving them nuts with my complaints. But I made it here today, so obviously it went well enough. So when I first heard about the opportunity to do the Scholars Project, I knew there were two things I was interested in doing a project on: feminism and history. And at first I was going to combine the two and do this huge retrospective on all forms of women, with the depiction of women in all forms of media from 1950s to present. Then I realized there's only 24 hours in a day. I don't really have time for that. So I decided to narrow it down very much to advertising, and specifically beauty and hygiene product advertising. And first of all, why beauty and hygiene products? Because those are the products that I believe are more targeted at women. When you look at ads, usually it's believed that women are the ones buying the detergents, they're the ones buying the soap. So these were the ads that I really wanted to look and examine the depiction of women in those ads. Second of all, why advertising? So first of all, I've always been interested in advertising from the time I was young. When I was little, I used to sit and watch on YouTube for hours and watch commercials from the 1980s. I was a weird child, but... and second of all, advertising is very, very pervasive. The average estimated ad exposure for a person in 2015 was 10,000 ads per day. So you just think about that, looking around, 10,000 things we see today are ads. And because they're so pervasive, they're very, very much influential. And this is due to a psychological concept called repetition conditioning. Basically the idea that if you repeat something to someone over and over and over, eventually they're going to internalize it. So advertisers are repeating harmful ideas about women over and over and over. Eventually people are going to start to internalize it. And that's problematic, because people who are making ads aren't women. The advertising agency industry in general has been almost exclusively dominated by white males and still is till today. So there's lots of perspectives that aren't getting included. We're missing out on the perspectives of women and people of color. And I wanted to see what those men in the advertising industry were really saying about women in their ads and subliminal messages. So I started off with the 1950s. So the 1950s were an interesting era. In the 1940s, women were actually brutally liberated when during World War II, their husbands went out to work. So they decided to go and take over those jobs. They worked in factories, they worked as milkmen and things like that. But then after they returned to war, they were forced back into the home in this concept of the cult of domesticity, where women were essentially worshipped for being in the home. And there's this concept of nuclear family, that if we had these perfect little families with the father and the mother and the son and the daughter, we could protect against the evil C-word communism. And ads for the 1950s emphasized a lot about women's roles in the household, and women were viewed very much as household influencers. They decided what products to buy within the home. So there's a lot of emphasis on women always looking good and attracting men, and women were depicted in very, very narrow roles. They were either mothers or wives or lovers. And they were largely depicted very much as frivolous and vain. And that really obviously did not reflect all women at the time, but nonetheless, advertisers still depicted women as such. Then the 1960s was a brief era of liberation for women with the women's rights movement, which led to the idea of the liberated and modern woman. So this was a new stereotype for advertisers to latch onto. So they began to use increased sexualization, the idea that women should feel free with their bodies. And this created new body standards for women because they were depicting these tiny, skinny ladies in bikinis. And women would look at these ads and internalize these messages and say, why doesn't my body look like that? And also advertising, despite the fact that this was also the birth of the civil rights movement, advertisements were very much racially charged. For example, I distinctly recall this ad for not a no skin bleaching thing, which basically told black women that if you don't have light skin, no man is going to want to date you. So for women of color, it was essentially double whammy, because not only were they told how they should act as women, they were told how they should look as people of color, and when they really obviously didn't look like that naturally. Then the 1970s came along, and the movements from the 1960s that were considered countercultural, that feminist movement, became slightly less countercultural. This feminist movement won victory in the Supreme Court with Roe versus Wade, which essentially legalized abortion. And it was basically advertising was also continuation in the 1970s. There was more emphasis placed on the body, increased sexualization, the idea of women using products to please men, and women being frivolous. Then the 1980s came about, and we had the Ronald Reagan era, and it was basically a return to conservatism, much like the 1950s. So there was a lot less sexualization. So they weren't showing women's whole bodies, but instead they would show like the Chanel No. 5 ad. They would show a pair of legs, and this was objectifying women. It was reduce them to just a pair of legs, or their backs, or their arms. But another victory for women actually in the 1980s was that they were depicted in a lot more extensive roles. They were no longer just depicted as mothers, or lovers, or wives. Now they were depicted as doctors or teachers. But nonetheless, there's still a continuation of ideas from the previous era, like women using certain products to please men, women being frivolous. Then in the 1980s, much like the 1960s, were an era of social change. There was the birth of the LGBT movement on the heels of the AIDS crisis in the 1980s. A higher divorce rate, women were becoming more liberated, and ads were now beginning to be more targeted towards women. For example, this ad for Dial Soap. Previously, an ad for Dial Soap in the 1950s would have said something like, "Woman, use Dial Soap, she'll smell nice for your husbands." But now this ad is telling women, "Use Dial Soap so you feel nice about yourself." However, women were still depicted as powerless to men's charms and things like that. And that brings us to today. So today we look at ads from the 1950s and we're like, how could they ever be so backwards? But the thing is, there's still progress to be made today. Women are still depicted in stereotypical roles. We still emphasize women's flaws in ads. Also, as far as diversity, we don't depict a very diverse array of women. And the way I think we can fix this is through conscious consumerism on the part of women. We should make an effort to try to not buy products from companies that use sexist messages in their advertising. Also, I want to increase awareness, so that's why I started my blog, aptly titled Sexist Ad Catalog. And I've basically just been collecting ads for the past 6 months from magazines, from magazines and different sources that I believe send sexist messages to women so that we can increase awareness about these ads. And also, just in general, I hope that for all the young women that are listening to this room, that maybe we can get more involved in advertising agency so that we can have our voices heard, and maybe in the future, there's maybe somebody standing up here in 10 years talking about feminist ads. So that's really it. Thank you.
I'm curious to know, hi, so wonderful. I'm curious to know, so what would a feminist ad look like?
So I would say that feminist ad would be made by women because, like I said, the advertising agency is still almost exclusively dominated by men. So be made by women, and also encourage women to use the product not to please men or not for their looks, but just encourage them to use the product because it's useful. I mean, that's the ad, the way they have ads for men that like they tell men just use the soap because it's useful and it gets you clean. So why don't we have ads like that for women? So I think that's my idea of a feminist ad. Yes.
What do you think about the Dove soap advertising campaign that features women of different sizes and shapes and colors and things like that?
I mean, I think it's a really nice ad campaign, honestly. I think it's like this idea of having women talk openly about those things and normalizes it. But to some extent, I feel like it's also reflective of the problems that women still place a lot of their worth in their looks, and that's kind of problematic. That the ads are still like telling women, okay, don't place so much worth in your looks, while telling them, okay, use this product so you look good. So it's a little bit of a contradictory thing. Yes.
I think it's interesting to note that the Dove ad campaign is actually run by a woman. So
Yeah.
maybe that's where.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Actually, the Dove campaign was criticized because the bodies of the women there were no wrinkles.
Yeah.
Even if they were bigger, there were no blemishes. Right. Yeah.
Not that I would think personally, but I'm just saying.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. We'll talk about diversity in these projects. So, each one is different from the other, which is great. Our next project by Yaron Sternberg focuses on his writing, his poetry, and it's a departure from our other topics, and he's going to share it with us today.
This was more of a personal topic for me. When I was asked to join the program, I I knew I was not a good orator. This was actually the moment I've been fearing since day one. But I knew that I loved to write, and I knew that I used it as my escape for a lot of things. And pretty soon, I'll be sharing a very personal moment with you. I want to thank Mr. Katz before everything. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank Ms. Slam for looking over my work, and I'll get to other thank yous soon. Okay, this presentation is going to include the following. It's going to include a detailed explanation of my research process, an example of my writings along with its analysis, and the layout of the project along with predicted goals for its continuation. So my research was reading and analyzing other authors. I like to write poetry, I like to write satire, allegory, short stories. I like to really get out there and use my words to speak for me, because I'm not a great speaker. So the authors and poets, you have Poe with his much darker, more morbid ideas. You have Shakespeare. I use the idea of his 14er, where a 14er by Shakespeare is when you're rewriting that same sentence over and over and over again. And you have these minor variations, these minor nuances, and each sentence develops further and further your idea, your central idea. You can deviate from your central idea. You have Richard Corey, which has a change in point of view, where for a moment you might hear one author speaking, and then the author changes in a second. Amy Tan, she incorporates her own life experience, and I felt that was very important for me, because I had read Amy Tan's work before, but when you learn about her life, and you learn about the reasons she did things, it gives more meaning to the writing. And then you have Guy de Maupassant, who is a nationalist, who uses his nationalistic history to incorporate into his writing. Edgar Allan Poe, like we said, his writings are dark, many are shorter stories, and the power of his writing is that for even a couple of pages, you're entering a fictional world, a world that was written by Edgar Allan Poe. None of the rules that you live by stand. This is a world where you're constricted to whatever Poe wants you to believe. His names are chosen uniquely. You have Fortunato. You have, the more you read, the more you appreciate. You can read it once, it's incredible. You can read it over, you have a basic storyline. And the more you read it, the more symbolism, the more metaphors you see. You have Amy Chen, who, like I said before, incorporates her own life story. In her short story, Two Kinds, she tells of a Chinese girl conflicted internally. She showed how she could listen to her mother, like the average Chinese girl would, and not go out and do what she wanted to do, or she could create her own path. For symbolism, it isn't the most difficult. You aren't going to spend hours trying to understand it. That doesn't make it any less powerful. To appreciate Tan's work more, you need only read about her life. Oliver Twist was a satire which is very extreme. The irony is clear, but not necessarily in the beginning, and purposely portrays the importance of my project, I think, is that it shows you the power of words, the power of writing, and purposely portrays an opposing idea so ridiculously to show the reader, wait one second, how could I possibly believe this? And finally, Guy de Maupassant, who depicted human lives and destinies and social forces in pessimistic terms. His setting was from the Franco-Prussian War. He incorporated his battles into it. And my story, The Inevitable End, is my story. So now, I hope we have enough time, but I'm going to try and read the foreword, the introduction, the dedication, and 2 poems out loud. So just for everyone here to get a little bit of my story, I'm going to read my first dedication. To the friend who inspired me to write and then ran away with her inspiration to heaven, I believe she wanted to share that same inspiration with God. Last year, I lost a very close friend of mine, and I didn't like to speak about it, and most people who know me, they didn't see any difference in my smile. Maybe I smiled a second less. There were these minor nuances in the way I behaved. No one really knew. But she inspired me to write. She was so talented, and it was like giving a painter his first paintbrush, a minor brush. I had no idea what I was doing with it. Then to Elena Gassi, I don't know if she's here tonight, but she taught me the importance of the comma and its power in literature. Now, I'm going to read you the next dedication, and you're going to say, and Mrs. Agassi herself said, why would I get the comma? The comma, not even the period? I couldn't be of more value to you? But it's the exact opposite. Sometimes Miss Agassi would look over my work, and she wouldn't change a single thing except putting a comma spliced. She might split up the sentence, and the entire poem would change. It had a completely new meaning. It let you stop for a second. You paused, you thought, you felt what I was feeling, what I was trying to convey. And finally, and Miss Agassi, to compare her, to further that analogy, to further that metaphor, she took that brush and she put it to paper. And she took my hand and she let me scribble. And finally, to Miss Bloom, who also couldn't make it here tonight, she took my scribbles and combined them to create tapestries. Now I'm going to read my introduction because I know I'm taking a pretty long time. But I will hopefully let the words speak for me. This book is a compilation of my writings. It is designed to stir up emotions, to demand of the reader to introspect. We all deal with controversial topics differently. The problem is many ignore these issues, labeling them as depressing, whether it be fictionally through short stories, jokingly through satire, gradually through allegories, or even head-on through poetry. I ask you a question. Will you push my writings, a symbol of your uncertainty, away, or will you choose to embrace uncertainty and even see it in a more positive light? There are 18 writings. I had about over 100 pages of writing which I wanted to publish, but I decided that 18 meant more to me. 18 is the legal age of adulthood, and I think maybe one person here of the scholars candidates were actually 18 years old, but whether or not you are 18 yet, and I am 17 myself, one should at least be exposed to the truth. Life offers uncertainties, and sooner or later we must face them. I'm going to read Miss Bloom's favorite poem. It's called Wings, and then I will finish off. I would give out the books, but we don't have enough for everyone, and originally I was planning on giving it out, but I think it would be more powerful if I let just my voice convey the message. Wings. God created man. He lent him a pair of wings, an opportunity to try and join him in the heavens. Man wanted to join his creator, so he jumped, but it could not be enough. The inability only made him want it more. So he began to starve himself, but his legs grew weak. He ate again. He shaved and extracted his nails. Though the difference was infinitesimal, the child felt he was closer to his father. But as he looked up, he became aware of just how far away he was. In a moment of anguish, he looked to his wings. He held them in his hands, felt their weight. With certainty, he sunk his teeth into these wings and tore them right off. His legs were in shape, but not too heavy in muscle. With a running start, he prepared to jump. His leap had never been so high. He looked up, the worst possible pain. At his peak, he was inches away. His full potential was simply inadequate. He fell back down to the ground and waited, but his wings did not grow again. Thus, man gave up on reaching his creator. So, So for now, my goals are to keep reading, keep writing, revising, and hopefully publishing. Thank you so much.
Does anyone have any questions?
No questions?
So how did you edit from 100 to 18? It's a very difficult process.
So I was always a writer. I loved to write all kinds of things, and I decided that I was going to encompass the idea of the inevitable end. And actually, that's a great question. And the reason I called the book The Inevitable End, originally I planned on calling it Unending Suffering. Probably a little more depressing, probably make you guys worry a little bit more. But I decided that that's not the message I wanted to convey. One of the things that helped me get through this time in my life was actually inspiration from another writer. Recently, I read something by Phil Kay. It's called Repetition, and it describes how if you repeat something enough times, a word or a phrase, it begins to lose its meaning. And I use that, and you could use it to this, and you could use it to say unending suffering, and you could repeat the words enjoyment, 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 until it loses its meaning. You could say, she's not going to have any more enjoyment in life. How could I continue to enjoy my life? Or you could use it to say pain, 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 and it's gone. And you realize, and one of my process, and part of my process to recovery was that idea that I know that her pain is gone. Yes.
You're a fantastic speaker. I don't know what told you otherwise. Just to know that.
Yeah, so here's, got some copies actually, so you can get at least one out to each table. Hopefully we have enough to go around. Thank you, you're all very, very powerful. Okay, our next speaker is Claire Lessler. And she's going to discuss a social media website she created with some other students from other schools. It has a social focus on helping girls who are in high school to find internships, build their careers, and reach out to each other. So she's going to come up here and tell us about it.
Okay, hi. So, first of all, apparently there was like a secret meeting where everyone decided they're going to put their thank yous in the beginning. Mine are at the end, so I'm going to put them at the end. Okay, so my project is a social media website, festy.com. Before I begin, I cannot claim sole creation of this website. I worked on this with 3 other people. I work here as a co-founder and as a backend developer, so that's my position. Okay, so let's start out with our mission statement. So this summer I was looking for internships, looking for things to do in the summer, and there aren't very many. There's a lot of college internships, a lot of sites that focus on college students, and there was nothing really for high school students. So we started out with a mission statement to create an online forum for high school girls and to make more internships and opportunities available to high school students. That was our purpose. Some background before I start. So the idea of coding is giving instructions to a computer, to a machine, that allow it to perform specific functions. So in basic terms, that means you tell a computer what to do. Back-end code and front-end code. So basically, if I'm on a website, the front-end code is what makes it, if the website is blue, the front-end code is what makes it blue. And if there's a button, the back-end code is what makes the button work when I press on it. So in layman's terms. Our stories, so how I met these other people, what we did. So I was at Girls Who Code in the summer, which is a great organization. We have about 3 students going there this summer, so I encourage everyone to apply to it if you're female, of course. If not, switch gender, so it's an option. So, I was at Girls Who Code, and we had a final project. So what I began with 3 other people to develop this final project, and eventually it could pass Girls Who Code. We got some funding from them originally. We got some, exposure from them, and eventually it grew into something much larger. In terms of my co-founder, so again, I said I work as a backend developer. Nazifa Mahi, she was a front-end developer. Adelaide Macaroon is our web designer, and Hilary Osei is another front-end developer. So I'm the sole backend developer. That means that whenever something goes wrong, it's my fault. A brief overview of our pages. So our site, I'm not sure how many pages it has actually. It should have 6, but actually I just added a login page, which doesn't show up here. So the home page basically circulates different content. We get our content from people who contribute to the site. We contact different people. We interview different people, and we put their content on the site. There's also a Twitter feed on there, a brief overview of the site on the home page. Our opportunities page is where we get most of our traffic. We actually monitor most of our traffic through Google Analytics, which we installed on our site. Lets us see, kind of creepy actually, lets us see your gender, your age, whether you're accessing our website from a tablet or from a phone, how much traffic we have on our site. So that's pretty cool. Our opportunities site is basically, we've got a compilation of different high school internships and opportunities. This is constantly updated. In September, I went to a New York City Tech conference with another coder, and we were talking to people at Schoology, at code.org, looking for different internships. Articles, okay, this is what it sounds like. A bunch of different articles where we get, some of these appear on the homepage, others appear on the articles page. The contribute page. So this took a long time to do, longer than it looks like it should. The idea of the contribute page is anything you put through the contribute page, put in an article title, your name, that appears on the forum page. We do monitor it. We're working on an algorithm to monitor it automatically. It also gets stored in a separate database, a .csv file, which is basically fancy words for a file that stores information, and we can access it and put it on the home page if necessary. Forum. So obviously that's the forum. That's what it sounds like. If you put information through the contribute page, it appears on the forum. About us. So that's what it sounds like. It's about us. So I'm skipping it.
I'll go back.
Yeah, it's pictures of people and descriptions. So I figured. Behind the scenes. So this is a little bit about the code behind the website. First, the hosting. So we're hosted by PythonAnywhere.com. That means that all the code for our website is stored on Python Anywhere's servers. Also, in terms of how we bought our name, so bestkeep.com, we bought it from Namecheap.com. It does cost some money, but overall, we're 4 people. It costs us $20 a year per person to maintain it, which is minimal. So we're fine with that. The actual code. So we use a web framework called Flask. That just means everything is organized in a framework. That's called Flask. In terms of the coding languages, so our whole website is coded in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some Python, also APIs and libraries. So the idea of a library is I don't want to code a new button that looks perfect every time I want to put a button on my site. I can use a button that's already been prepared and just put it there. It looks really nice. So we use some libraries, Bootstrap, jQuery Mobile, some APIs. An API is similar. Like Google Maps, I want to put Google Maps on my site instead of recoding Google Maps, which would probably take a long time. I can just download the Google Maps API, which is publicly available. So we use Google Maps, Google Analytics, Google Login, and we also use some plugins, Twitter and Facebook plugins. That means you can put Facebook comments on our site. To Twitter plugins, we have a live Twitter feed. How it spreads. So this is pretty major. One of the ways we spread was in our first week, we launched in late August. In our first week, we managed to get our story and our site on the Girls Who Code Snapchat story, which reaches over 40,000 people a day. So within a week, we amassed over 300 users. We were getting over 2,000 views per day, and it's continued to grow. Anyhow, so we did meet some people. So we had contact at BuzzFeed that talked to us. We had some contact with College Humor, which is a humorous site for college students. And that's part of the way it's spread. So plans for the future, this is something I'm kind of going to skim over it, just to get a brief idea. So making a profit, and currently we don't make money off of Festy. We're trying to grow it to a significant size and then try to make a profit. Ideally, right now we're looking at ads, but we could also sell user data. There's multiple ways for a website to make money, but right now it's still small, so we're keeping it ad-free. Improving the code. So there are some bugs. We want to switch from Flask, which is our current web framework, to Django, which is just faster, it's more efficient. So that's, we plan to do that. We plan to get a larger database to store information, a couple algorithms to organize the stuff on our site better. And also one of our long-term goals is a mentorship program for high school girls. Okay, so this is the thank you part that I mentioned earlier. So we have College Humor. They helped us with a ton of stuff. They were in the same building as us. There was Vimeo, a bunch of software engineers at Vimeo, Rashida, Maria Geyer, who's there, she's the head of user experience. And also everyone at Girls Who Code, Sir Singh, Jane Lee, Kanda from Hatas, they helped with everything. So we're extremely grateful to all of them. Backend code also, similarly, we had that contact at BuzzFeed. We had Rashika,
statement. This is kind of what it looks like. So.
Any questions for Claire? Yes.
I have a question. Yes. So first of all, I want to say it was incredibly impressive. The fact that I didn't understand half of what you just said only proves how impressive that was, and that the future is very bright for girls who code. So very good on that. Now I just have a simple question. Where'd you get the name Fesky? Is it an anagram of some kind, or did you pull it out of a hat, or?
It stands for female experts spread their knowledge and expertise every day.
Cool. That's great. Okay, that was my question.
In truth, we were kind of just like looking at a tree, and then one of us was like, "Oh, we should call it Fesky," and then
And then you made up what the words were.
If you type in Fesky in Google, it comes up.
yeah, it comes up first.
Oh, that is really cool.
What are the chances?
Well, that's a kind of first this morning. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That was great. Okay, our next project, you can already see the initial slide. Estelle Satt has actually been with this program for a while. She's been working on this a very long time. She's our senior. And she's finally going to get to show you what she's been working on. It's also dealing with advertising, but it's very different from Danielle's project. This is more dealing about the psychology that goes behind the advertising and how they target our minds when they create these ads. So Estelle's going to tell you about that.
Have you ever been so moved by an ad that you just had to go and buy the product that was being advertised? Advertising is about selling a lifestyle, a feeling, and convincing people that they cannot live without your product. Many psychological factors contribute into making an effective ad. It's about leaving a positive impression on people and teaching them what they want. So, advertising is a relatively new business strategy. It started with the development of psychology by Sigmund Freud in the early 20th century. And these theories about the mind and what drives certain actions were eventually applied to sell products. So, as I said before, it informs people about specific products and attracts consumers and persuades them to change their views on their existing views on your product, or introduces them to your product. And it's about getting into their minds. So, to make an ad effectively, you must first target a specific group of people that you think that your brand is trying to sell your product to. So you must consider who your product appeals to and gear your approach towards them. Once you know who you're aiming for, think about what kind of ad you should make, and based on where it will be seen by your target. So, for example, if you have a sugary cereal company, you're going to try to advertise to children, because those are the type of people that are going to buy your product. So, there are 3 stages of psychological responses to advertisements. First, you want people to become aware of your brand, and then to the next time they see the ad, to listen more closely to hear additional information about the product. And then the third stage is for them to remember what they saw when they are buying. Okay, so when an ad is being put together, an ad campaign for that matter, the marketing mix must be considered. So it's often referred to as the 4 Ps: product, price, promotion, and place. So first, you must know what your product is and all of its features in order to tell people what the product is and to sell it to them. Price is important because the higher price, higher customer value means that you could price the item higher. Promotion is actually creating the ad strategy and places where to put it for it to work most effectively. So it's not only about selling the actual product, but it's more about selling the ideology behind it. So a common saying is sell the sizzle, not the steak. So you're trying to tell people why your steak is different than the other ones. So an important part of this is creating a good image for your company. You're trying to make people think of something in their minds right away when they think of your brand. So a good way of doing this is through by giving back, like fulfilling your social responsibility. So for example, Tom's has a one-for-one campaign in which they donate a pair of shoes to children or people who don't have any for every pair that you buy. So that improves their image. Okay. So an important thing to remember when creating an ad is that positivity sells. So people want to be inspired to buy your product because they think it's going to do something good for them. They don't want a negative kind of a slogan. Okay. And also it has to be simple yet clever because you don't want it going over people's heads because then it's for nothing. Okay. So the main goal of advertisement is that people will think of your brand right away when they think of something. So when we think of like Q-tips, like who the cotton swabs, Q-tip right away, that kind of thing. Also, when you see the big M, you immediately think of McDonald's, even if there's no McDonald's actual letters under there. Also, another thing that helps are cartoon things and memorable slogans as well as jingles, because jingles get stuck in your head and that's for kids. Okay, so a lot of times things are misinterpreted. Many of you are probably familiar with the Pepsi ad campaign that basically failed very badly last week. So basically the ad was of a famous celebrity handing a bunch of policemen a Coke, or no, Pepsi, handing them a Pepsi, and that was supposed to end the social movement. All their problems are solved because they handed the policemen a Pepsi. So everyone thought that was very distasteful, and it kind of blew up in Pepsi's face. So that's an example. Also, when creating an ad, it's important to think of what's happening in the world and try to incorporate that into your ad. For example, Budweiser had a Super Bowl commercial in which they talked about how Budweiser came from Ireland and how his story as an immigrant and how he helped society and everything, and that was happening at the same time as the immigration policy, whatever that thing that happened. Okay, so a lot of psychological factors go into creating an ad. One of them is color recognition. So, as is shown there, some colors make you think of things right away. So, for example, pink shows kind of makes you think of sweetness, purple royalty, that kind of thing. So. Okay. So after you've created your ad, it's important to put it in the right spot. So you have to consider the following things. How many people will see the ad, and how much of those people are actually your targeted audience, and how many times these people will see the ad, and the cost of the slot. So I decided to do this project just randomly out of interest, and it's really helped me so much, and I plan on going into it in college and then in the future. And special thank you to Miss Laura Walker and Lauren Fuller, as well as Mr. Katz, Ms. Berkowitz, Dr. Mizrahi, and Mr. Feller. Thank you.
mention that Laura Walker, who's an advertising professional, actually Mr. Hofstadter's wife, who's a teacher, our English teacher, his wife is an advertising executive, and she helped set that internship up. Estelle was able to make that connection. And just to build on, I think we made a mistake. I think if she had handed them a Coke, like you said, it would have worked better in Pepsi's favor. Okay. So, okay, great. Now we have 2 more projects left. And the next presenter is Nathan Marcus. He's presenting.
Thank you, good evening. Here's just a quick introduction video before our presentation, so just enjoy.
Start.
Expedite's mission is to go to every major city in the world and provide an easy, efficient, and expedited delivery service. No matter the time of day, everyone needs something. Whether it's a toothbrush, a t-shirt, or a can of soda, you can have anything delivered to you at any time of day at your convenience. It's the simplicity about not having to worry about how your products will get from point A to B that is truly remarkable. So much about cities is how you get around them. Bringing innovation to this world can bring diversity to a system which hasn't seen a lot of it in the past decade. If you can bring real efficiency, real comfort, and real convenience to a city, you can change how people live in that city. We're ready to change the world. Are you?
I'm really sorry about this. I forgot to eat and I'm literally starving. So as you can see on there, there's the pizza time, and I'm just gonna order something very quickly if you don't mind. I'm just gonna scroll down, and I'm in the mood for, let's go by pizza by the slice. And I'm just gonna order just a regular cheese slice. Okay. And we'll add that to the cart. I'm going to special instructions, that's just it. And now I'm going to get that. I'm going to go for a drink. I'll just also add, I'll add Snapple. And we get peach. And I'll add that to my cart as well. And I'll confirm the purchase. Now, if you watch the screen, you'll see the demonstration of my website that I made. It will be playing live while I talk. Sorry about that. Now I'll begin my presentation. Hi, my name is Nathan Marcus, and I am the CEO of Expedite. Expedite is an on-demand delivery service that enables you to receive any product of your desire to your doorstep in a matter of minutes. I am here to talk to you today
about a human-driven delivery platform. One that can cut congestion, parking, and pollution in a city, and make the daily lives of people so much easier by the technology in our pockets. Now, before I tell you what Expedite actually does and what it will do in the near future, I want to start by telling you how it actually came to be. I want to tell you my story. So on a snowy evening in 2015, I was home alone and I was just craving a schnitzel sandwich. But at that very moment, I think the last thing that I would do is leave my house into that cold weather, go into my car and drive to the store. No sandwich would be worth doing that for me. So then it hit me. What if I didn't have to do that? What if I created or designed something that enabled me to get anything that I wanted by a simple push on my smartphone? Now don't get me wrong, I bet you're all probably thinking, there are companies and products that already do this. But I'm not thinking about delivering only food, like what Uber Eats does, or delivering products, like what Postmates does. I'm thinking something else. I'm thinking appliances. I'm thinking clothing. I'm thinking apparel. Thinking necessities and accessories. I'm thinking something big. I'm thinking Expedite. So for a company to be successful, they need to solve a problem. So what problem does Expedite actually solve? Why is this necessary? I'm going to tell you right now. Every year in the United States, people spend 7 billion hours stuck in traffic. Whether it's at a red light, or going out to groceries, or just getting takeout from a restaurant, we are wasting our time in our cars. That equates to $160 billion loss in productivity. And on top of all that, that is 1/5 of all the carbon footprint that is being spewed out by these cars that we drive. Now, that is only 5% of our problem, because if you own a car, then 95% of the time, it is just sitting there doing nothing. And so, it's taking up 30% of our space just storing these hunks of steel. I mean, we're building skyscrapers for these cars. That is the world that we are living in today. Now, the cities that we live in, they've been seeing these problems for years and even decades. It's called mass transit. And even in a city like New York City, one of the most widely and densely populated cities in the world, and it has the most sophisticated mass transit systems ever, there's still 2.5 million cars going back and forth on those bridges every single day. And you want to know why? It's because these mass transit systems, they don't know how to get to everyone's doorstep. So our mission here is to take some cars off the road. We don't want people going out to buy their items. We, Expedite, want to deliver it to them. So it started off as a desire to just push a button and get something to your doorstep. Soon enough, many people wanted to join, and many people wanted to also press that button and join me on this journey. So, how does it actually work? So if you're looking at my website that I made, you would see a step-by-step explanation of how it actually works, including all the features that my future app will have. I'm going to briefly explain how it works myself, in my own words. So first, let's start off really simple. You basically just download the app Expedite off the App Store, and you make an online-based account. Now you have that. Now, you want the product delivered to your house. You just fire up the Expedite app, and you go straight for the search toolbar in the corner. Once you do that, let's just assume in this scenario you want steak. You type in steak. Now, a list of various stores will pop up. Now you can set the setting of your vicinity to 1 mile, 5, 10, 50, etc. of how far you want your stores to be. Now once you have that, all the stores will pop up, and let's say Glamour pops up. It will show you what they have on the menu and how long it will take to deliver. Let's say Jerusalem Steakhouse pops up. It will also tell you what to do. It will give you the whole menu and what you want to do. Let's say you just want to deck a cart. It will show you the local list of all the convenience stores in your vicinity and how long it will take. Now, once you add your product to your cart and confirm your purchase, you will get a notification by the app that you are connected now with the driver. Depending on availability, distance, time, and traffic, it will tell you how long the product will take to get to your house and how much it will cost. And once you're connected to that driver, it will also give you some information about the driver, such as their rating, their license plate number, what their car, and a photo of him or her. When the driver is typically around 2 to 3 minutes away from your house, the app will automatically send a notification to your phone saying to come outside and get your product. No cash is required because you previously already inserted your credit card into your account. So that, in a nutshell, is how the app works. It's a very efficient and simple experience, but it still has the attentiveness of tracking and customer feedback. So I started this project about a year ago, and I'm very proud to say that I've really come a long way. I'd like to thank many people, especially Mr. Katz, for really helping me out throughout the year, as well as the rest of the administration, and I'd really like to thank my family, my mom and dad for their tremendous support, so really thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Let's appreciate it. You're a good presenter. Waiting for the feedback. Oh, you got the t-shirt.
How do you make money?
Okay, so there are many logistics and algorithms that we still have to figure out. Let's say this store is 2 miles away. How many cents per mile it will cost in order for me to deliver it?
Are you going to hire a learning driver?
Well, that's what these car companies are doing nowadays, yeah. And it's going to be a tough job to do it, but we wouldn't want to do it.
Are you going to warehouse the products you're selling, or are you selling it directly from the people?
No, we are not warehousing anything.
No, just app.
Where do you get your drivers and how much at all are you getting them?
Okay, so I cut my speech a little short because I'm a little short on time, but I'm very proud to say that we are currently in the development of our app, and we are searching for drivers right now, me and my friend Sigrid. It's going to be hard, but even I can start off just going in my car and ordering these items. Eventually, once we grow a little, I can start, advertising.
How many hours?
You create an inventory for, I mean, like you're talking in stores, I mean, that means a lot of that, like just to inventory within every store.
So let's take, let's take Walgreens for a second. So you know their cash registers, their computers, so they're gonna have to restock on their, on their inventory on there. That will, also translate to our. And it may seem like a lot of man work hours like that. It is worth it for everyone because it's creating jobs and it's creating business for me and them.
That's what Steve Jobs now.
Okay, our last project, but certainly not least, Reedy Wingor. And she did a project on fashion, also based on history, going through the decades and taking inspiration from different sources from the 50s, 60s, 70s, so on, and using those as an inspiration as she builds her designing career. And she can explain how those influences affected her and how she approaches her art.
Okay guys, we made it to the best part. First off, I'd like to thank the Blumenthal family, and I'd like to thank Mr. Katz, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming. So I'm very interested in the topic of fashion, which is not offered as a regular class here in school. So I did sign up for a few Pathfinders opportunities with Ms. Hannon, and I found it very interesting and that I really enjoy fashion and working with fashion. So I wanted to research it. So I decided to look at past decades, because each decade has a specific style that when you hear the 1960s, you think of a specific style that was for 1960s. But I also realized that no matter how much fashion is always changing, designers always look back to the past and they add like just a modern twist, and like overalls were like in a long time ago, people stopped wearing them and now everyone's wearing them again. So styles always come back, but fashion is also always changing, so I found that very interesting. I also studied the business aspects of fashion, and I saw that in today's day and age, social media plays a very big role in fashion and how people advertise and sell. Today, a lot of teenagers and people look up to models as their role models, and if a designer gets a specific model to wear their clothes, they can sell so much of it. And advertising on social media like Instagram, Snapchat, it's a very big deal. And so.